Good morning. How are you today? You look good. Well, I'm inspired by a couple things as I'm coming to this conference. I'm inspired by you and all you do, all you carry, how you work jobs and serve in ministry. I just want you to know that God sees it. When you feel like no one sees it, God sees it. And today, this weekend, I see it. And I'm just so proud of you. And I want to encourage you with that. Never forget that there are people cheering you on in America. Me and my wife are cheering you on. Lakewood is cheering you on in America. And we're going to go back and report on all the great leaders, all the great churches. And I'm just so thankful for Pastor Errol, Pastor Matilda. Didn't she do a great word? Come on. And you know what inspires me too is watching these kids. The young man, doing the camera, the little girl doing the photography. That means that church is alive, that it's building for generations, and that's so exciting. And then the Belgian church, come on, that worship team. I mean, I asked Pastor Earl, I said, how big is that church? He says, well, it's about 100. I said, it sounds like it's about 5,000, It's amazing. But, you can't look at numbers. Numbers for God doesn't mean anything. What's about for God is relationship. It's about heart. It's about building people. And so just so proud of all the work that you guys are doing. Every church. I mean, I could sit here and brag on every one of you on what you're doing, but it would take all my time speaking. And you didn't have me come here for that. But I just want to encourage you. Hey, I do want to remind you of this. This book's called You Are Extraordinary. This is the first book in Thomas Nelson, which is a large Christian publisher in America that includes special needs kids and typical kids. And it tells them how extraordinary they are. So if any child deals with self-image, it tells them how extraordinary they are. Or if a child has autism, it tells them how extraordinary they are. It's a great book for your kids. This book here, Champion, it tells our story, but the second half, how many has faced some big obstacles lately? Well, this tells you how to overcome challenges in your life. So it's a great book. And then Lead Vertically is kind of how we led ministry at Lakewood Church. I know I'll encourage you. I always like it when I don't have to take the suitcase home full of books. So it blesses me when those things go, because those books are heavy, going back. But we're just so excited to be here with you today. It's good to have my wife again with me. And in ministry, I think it's so true in leadership, it can be lonely, can't it? Many times you can feel invisible. Does anybody see what I'm doing? Does anybody notice that I'm here? I'm working all the time, and how valuable are the things that I'm actually doing? Is it making any impact, As a special needs parent, and I've even talked to some special needs parents here today. Many of them feel forgotten, like nobody understands what they walk through, and most people don't, because it's hidden. And so many things that are hidden we think are invisible. I felt this way, and I've seen other pastors this way. It doesn't matter if there's a lot of people around you. You can still feel invisible. You can still feel invaluable. I felt at times standing in front of hundreds or thousands of people and still felt invisible. I felt like I wasn't worth enough. Isn't that amazing that you can feel that way? So it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. But I want to encourage you today. I think this is a word for you as leaders, as pastors, as people part of this great movement. I want to talk to you today about invisible but invaluable. Invisible but invaluable. And I want to read to you today from Matthew chapter 6, verse 4. So that your giving may be in secret. than your Father who sees what is done in secret. Those of you that feel invisible, that nobody sees it, God sees it. He will reward you. And there's so much power really in being invisible. You know, there was an equipment manager for a professional basketball team, NBA team in the United States. And the team, I was talking to him, and the team often arrives in the middle of the night and has to go to the arena sometimes at 2 a.m. in the morning. But he studies each player, what they like. He gets their lockers, you know, all their, he takes their laundry. He gets everything to their liking. He's so dedicated. And he said something so powerful one time. He said, I'm invisible, but I'm invaluable. Nobody sees me, but I know I matter. He says, I am always behind the scenes, but if I didn't do what I did, they couldn't do what they do. And he says, I'm secure enough in who I am that I can be comfortable behind the scenes. I'm content to make others look good. See, when you have this attitude, I want to encourage you, and I've felt this attitude from you today, this weekend. Those of you that have served me behind the scenes, gotten coffee, I mean, you've overwhelmed me with your generosity. When you have this attitude, you're sowing a seed. You're pushing people up. And here's the deal. When it's your time to shine, God will make sure someone is there to push you up. But you must pass the test of being invisible. See, here's the thing. If you aren't secure enough in life to be invisible, you will struggle feeling valuable. But Craig, I'm doing a lot of work at my job, in my business, at the church. No one sees me. Remember, you're not working unto people, you're working unto God. This verse talks about what you give in secret, God will reward for you in the open. As a matter of fact, the greatest things that you do should not be in front of people. It should be behind the scenes. That's what God rewards. So all of you that are working behind the scenes, get ready. You're going to get more reward than I am. Making your supervisor look good. Making your team look good. Giving, going out of your way to help others excel. Be okay being invisible. Because just remember, you're invaluable. That person you're investing in wouldn't shine as bright without you. They may even think they did it on their own. That's okay. God sees it. God sees every seed that you've planted. Every one of us should be invisible in somebody's life. Not looking for credit. Not announcing, hey, everybody, look at what I'm doing. Do it quietly in humility unto God. Many people were behind the scenes making this service, this conference happen here today. They are so invaluable. They make us look good. And I can't thank you all enough for all the people, the bands, the worship, the technicians, all the people doing all the things. You made this happen. Their names are not on the sign, but they are invaluable. Their names are not on the screen, but they are incredible. You have to accept the role that God has given you right now. Because if you don't, you'll compete with others. You'll get frustrated, feeling like you should be where they are at. Excuse me. The challenge is, if you aren't anointed for that role, it will not satisfy you. The weight will be too heavy. There's a difference between self-ambition, excuse me. There's a difference between self-ambition and holy ambition. Self-ambition seeks to put the spotlight on you. Holy ambition seeks to put the spotlight on God and others. See, good people, family, friends will look at your role and they'll tell you where they think you should be, right? Have you ever had a family member, somebody else say, you shouldn't be there, you should be there. And many times, they're just trying to raise you, they're just trying to help you. And we all need to be motivated. But we can motivate ourselves into the wrong position. I've seen so many leaders follow promotions and be miserable. And I have come to see God's definition of promotion. A promotion is not just a move up the ladder. It is a move towards your call. Don't let someone promote you from your calling. Let me give you an example. I planted a church in Seattle, Washington. And it was one of the toughest, things I've ever done. And God really blessed this church. And I was a senior pastor. In the middle of that time, God spoke to me. He said, Craig, I want you to go and help rebuild the family. He says, I want you to go and help in children's ministry. And the first thought that came to my mind was, God, I'm a senior pastor. Isn't that going down the ladder instead of going up the ladder? And that's actually the opposite with God, isn't it? That's how we think in our human mind. And I had to work through that. You know, don't you start out as children's pastor, then maybe youth pastor, then adults, and then you get to senior pastor? You don't go from senior pastor to children's pastor. But once I got through that pride, because pride will kill you more than any enemy ever can. And once I got through that pride, I humbled myself. I said, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll help these families. And I went back to Southern California, and I began to work in children's ministry. I'd never done it before. I didn't really even think like a pastor, and that's what made it innovative, like a children's pastor. I didn't think like it. And so I began to work, and all of a sudden one church asked me to be their children's pastor. I said, you realize I've never been a children's pastor before. And they said, that's what we like. We like what you're doing with the leaders. We like what you're doing with the ministry. And in 3 years' time, our children's ministry became world-renowned. And then I got a call from the largest church in America, and they wanted me to be their children's pastor and family pastor. And I said, you realize I've only been a children's pastor for 3 years, but you understand what I'm saying. If I wouldn't have humbled myself and followed the call and not the position, I would have never gotten to the place where I'm standing in front of you right now. It's all about timing with God. And I wouldn't be at Lakewood. You're not here just to climb the ladder. You're here to serve. Even Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve others. And God puts people in our lives so we can help them succeed, not just build our resumes. Amen? Build your resume by serving your overseers, helping your coworkers, volunteering with your volunteers. I'm going to say that again, volunteering with your volunteers. That you go outside of your job and you're just there to volunteer. You're just there to be there. And watch God elevate you and take you to places you never dreamed. When you wake up every day and say, my role in this day is to be my best and to make others shine, God is shining down on you. God won't ask you if you kept up with your relatives or the pastor from another church or the other leaders, or did you have more stuff than someone else. Here's what God will ask. Matthew 25:24. And whoever gives to one of these little ones in rank or influence, even a cup of cold water, because he is my disciple, surely I declare to you, he shall not lose his reward. You see, here's the deal. And this is what I've known in life in 32 years of ministry. When you build people, God will build you. When you build people, God will build you. I want you to think about this story of Jonathan, the son of Saul. Think about this for a minute. He was the heir to the king, but he wasn't chosen as king. How difficult is that? His best friend David was chosen instead. Yet Jonathan was so secure that he went out of his way to help David. Gave him inside information to keep him safe from his own father. Behind the scenes, Jonathan was keeping him safe. He could have thought, wait a second, this guy David took my spot. I should be king. He could have thought, why aren't I in this position? No, he knew his role in David's story was to push him forward. And I can't tell you how amazing that is. How incredible leadership right there. He knew as he helped push David towards his destiny, he was pushing himself towards his own destiny. You see, it's better to become who God created you to be than try to promote yourself to become someone you weren't created to be. David wasn't raised in royalty. He came from a poor family of shepherds in the desert. Jonathan took David under his wing and taught him the protocol. Behind the scenes, helping his friend David, not competing with him. People saw David shining, rising to new heights. What they didn't see is Jonathan, his good friend, who was supposed to be king, helping David shine behind the scenes. Often we think, let me be like David, a hero of the faith. But we should aspire to do great things, and that's important. But I might say today, let me be a Jonathan and push somebody into their destiny. Let me realize it's okay to play a smaller role. Help me not to be jealous of someone else. Let me be behind the scenes and help someone else look better. See, here's the truth. True greatness is not how bright you shine, but how bright you make others shine. I'm going to say that again. True greatness is not how bright you shine, but how bright you make others shine. Now, look on the other side of it. Jonathan's father, Saul. Saul couldn't handle David's success. When the people sang, Saul killed thousands and David killed 10,000s, Saul never looked at David the same way again. He loved David as a young man. The problem came when people said David was more talented. Now, if you're going to reach your highest potential, you have to be happy for the people that pass you by. That's not easy, is it? Can you handle being number two? Pass that test of being happy for people who rise higher. It's the sovereignty of God. It has nothing to do with you or them. It's just God's sovereignty. Favor is not fair many times because it's not about someone being higher than another. It's about seasons in life. Celebrate what God has done in somebody else's life in their season. God's blessing them doesn't mean He cannot promote you. God never runs out of favor. He never runs out of promotion. It's all about timing for God. But if you become a Saul and get jealous, it will keep you from your destiny, not them. God lifts up one and He sets down another. You don't have to be David to be fulfilled. You don't have to be a king to be happy. You don't have to offer things that you don't have at that time to be valuable. When you keep a pure, right heart, I want to encourage you, you're passing the test. And there are many people in this room, I want you to know, I want to encourage you, you're passing the test right now. You're passing the test. And God will take you from being invisible to being visible again. Pastor Joel, our pastor, he was content behind the scenes actually for many years. He liked making his father look good. He did his best to make his father shine. He was invisible, but he knew he was fulfilling his purpose. He wasn't thinking, I'll take over one day. And Joel isn't any happier today speaking in front of thousands and millions than he was behind the scenes. As a matter of fact, for 17 years behind the scenes, Joel served his dad and his mom. And here's some things you don't know. Victoria, his wife, would do Joel's dad's hair before he'd go out and preach. Joel would go the night before his dad was supposed to speak that day, and he would lay out his suits and lay out his shoes and make him look his very best to go out and speak to people. He edited his dad's sermons for 17 years, always working behind the scenes. What was happening? He was invisible, but he was invaluable. He was lifting his dad up. And at the right time, what happened? God lifted Joel up. And now he's reaching more people than his dad ever reached. When you're secure in who God made you and what God made you, you can be content wherever you are. You don't have to promote yourself. You don't have to try to compete with somebody else. Keep honoring God. When it's your time to be promoted, God will do that. You know, Elisha spent time taking care of Elijah. He wasn't comfortable being visible. At one point, Elisha said, "Go away." But he knew his destiny was tied to Elijah. And after years of being invisible, Elijah was taken to heaven. Elisha had been faithful all those years. Elisha took over and performed twice as many miracles as Elijah ever did. There's so much power in working behind the scenes. It's like when we don't see God many times, he's usually working behind the scenes, getting ready for where he's going to take us. And here's the truth of the matter. If you get elevated too quickly, you may not be ready for what God's about to give you. Many times people want it before it's God's timing. And when they get it, they can't handle it. And in ministry and in life, when God is ready to promote you, if we get ahead of God, we'll miss some of the greatest things that he wants to do in our lives. And I think that God, it's like in America, we have what are called crock pots, right? Do you have crock pots here? Okay. You've got crock pots and microwaves, right? We all like the microwave, don't we? Because the microwave, you can get it fast, you know? You get it quick. The food's quicker, right? The crock pot, it slow cooks, right? It takes time and everything. We want the microwave kind of life. But God's the crock pot kind of God, right? He wants to slow cook it. But guess what? How many knows it tastes a lot better coming from the crock pot than it comes from the microwave? You slow cook that beef, right? We like beef in Texas, right? You slow cook that beef and oh man, the juices and the flavors and the things that are coming out of it. Oh, it's so good. And you breathe. Oh, I'm getting somebody excited today, right? You know, you guys are like me. I like food, right? And so you bring that out, and man, you put it in America, we like tacos. So you put those brisket tacos, and you flavor it over there. And, oh, it's so good. Oh, give me another one. Another one. Microwave, okay, it's good. You know, you're just eating that really quick. Slow cook it. See, don't go after the microwave life. Go after the crock pot life. The slow cooker. Because why? When you speak, when you lead, when you walk out there, it's going to taste so good to the people you're speaking to. It's going to be so much more impactful. God is going to give you experience and knowledge and increase and understanding that you never had before. Let him season you in your life. Right now, while you're invisible, it could be the greatest time in your life. It's so interesting. You know, when our pastor started speaking, and some of the things that he got criticized for is he had never spoken before. And people would you know, say, how can a person that's never spoken before lead a church like this? And how can God bless them with all these people? And how can he resonate with people around the world when, you know, me and the church would look at that and say, you need to be a theologian. And you know, I want to bring this back again to how God worked in the Bible, right? God never took the people that we think God should have taken. When you look at Saul, everybody looked at Saul in the kingdom and said, that's what a king looks like. He looked like a king. He talked like a king. He acted like a king. David over here, a little shepherd boy, he looked nothing like a king. He talked nothing like a king, right? But who we think should be king may not be who God thinks should be king. And God will look for those shepherds. Many of you are shepherds in this place that God saw in a shepherd field when nobody else saw you. And because you were faithful, you were invisible but invaluable. See, David was learning things out in that shepherd field that he could have never learned as king. He was learning how to fight the lion. He was learning how to wait and be patient on the Lord. Let me tell you something. Peace is powerful. And when you learn a position of peace and patience, that's when you grow in God and grow in your faith. It's not when you're doing all the ministry and everything that's happening. Man, it's in those quiet times. It's where nobody sees. It's in that prayer closet. I want to encourage you with something else. You know who some of the greatest people that in the church today that nobody sees, but they're some of the most powerful people? They're intercessors, people that know how to pray. And I encourage you with this as a leader. Every leader needs to have one intercessor praying for them all the time. I actually have two. They are two 70-year-old ladies that pray for me nonstop. That when I can't pray, they're constantly praying for me. What are they? They're invisible to everybody else, but they're invaluable to me. They're staying the gap. They're believing when at times when I don't have the faith, at times when I'm standing here in front of this crowd, I'm going, oh, Lord, I can't even believe I'm here. You know, are they going to listen to anything that I say? They're praying, saying, no, Craig, you're confident. You could do this. God's got you. Craig, you're going to deliver a word today that's going to speak to somebody's heart. That in their invisible time, they're not going to give up. They're going to keep on going. They're going to know today that even though they're invisible, they're invaluable. That you've got a plan for their life. You see, Joel sit behind the scenes for 17 years, but what you don't know is that although he started speaking for the first time, for 17 years he edited his dad's messages. Now, do you know what it's like to edit something? You got to watch it over and over and over again, right? So with that, his dad was a great Bible teacher. So when he watched those messages, he was actually learning how to do a message. But here's the difference. Here's what's so important about knowing who you are and being secure in who you are. It wasn't just that was going inside of him, right, to get him prepared later on. What was also important is he had to know that he wasn't his dad. That's very important right there. Because when he took over the church, here's what he would hear. He would hear, oh, he'll never be like his dad. He can't preach like his dad. He's totally different. His dad's more of a fiery preacher. Joel's very soft-spoken and everything. His dad, Joel's not as big of a Bible teacher, quote unquote. Joel has this message of hope. He'll never be like his dad. This church will never make it. It'll never continue. He heard that for the first 6 months. And his inclination was, I should preach like my dad. So for the first 6 months, okay, Joel tried it. And he literally, this is the truth, he wore his dad's shoes. He wore his dad's shoes and he preached his dad's messages for the first 6 months. Until, though, God told him, he said, Joel, I never asked you to be your dad. I asked you to be you. He said, I've already given you a message. You've already got that seed of editing your dad's. You know how to put together a message. And he says, now I want you to be you. And sure enough, 6 months into it, he started preaching this message of hope that really was a message to all people and everything. And the church went from 6,000 in 4 years to 24,000. And in 1 weekend, it went from 24,000 to 60,000. Now, here's the deal. Nobody would have picked Joel to lead that church. Nobody. He was David. His own mother laughed when he told her he wanted to take the church. She said, Joel, you've never preached. You've never done this. And yet God said, no, you're the one. You're the one that should do this. Why is that? Because he was faithful being invisible for 17 years. He was faithful when nobody saw him. He wasn't looking to be his dad or try to be this father of the faith or do certain things. He was faithful in the quiet times, and God elevated him when his time was right. Oh, man. Don't get discouraged where you're at right now. Don't get discouraged with 50 people. Man, preach to those 50 like you're preaching to 50,000. Man, give them all you can. Yeah, I'll guarantee you one thing. You know, people ask me all the time, they'll say, Pastor Craig, what's it like to preach in front of 40,000 people? It's the same for me if I have 1 or 40,000. I can't believe anybody wants to listen to me anyway. I'm still amazed. I sit here and go, Pastor Al, do you really want me to preach here? Man, to your great congregations, your great leaders, I'm still surprised. I'm not faking this. I mean, I'm telling you the truth. I'm just a kid from Visalia, California, in the middle of the valley. I have no idea how I got here. It's only the grace of God, isn't it? It's only the goodness of God. But I'll tell you what, if I was preaching in a church in Belgium in front of 100 people, I would be as happy as preaching in front of 40,000 at Lakewood Church. Because that's what God gave me. My first youth group, listen to this. It was in Compton. You guys know about Compton, right? Yeah, there we go. Gangs, all that. That was my first youth group. I had 3 people in my youth group. 3 people. And 2 of them were young adults of the one brother that was a youth. But you know what? I preached, I gave everything I could to those 3 people. And because I was faithful, in a year's time, we became the largest youth group in Southern California. Not because of me. Oh, man. I mean, I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be doing anything for Jesus. It's all because of him. It's all because of Jesus. Man, can you be invisible? Because if you could be invisible, you're invaluable to the kingdom. You're invaluable to God. At the right time, he will lift you up. Listen to this. And I want to close with this right here. Be content to play your role. God is keeping the records, not man. You will rise higher. You'll fulfill your destiny and become everything God created you to be. Be good at being visible, because you're invaluable to the kingdom. God bless you today.